Hello, brother sewing and crafting family. Angela Wolf here, and I'm super excited to see you on another new week. We still have some more Halloween stuff for you. Actually, we've got some quilting going on, quilt broidery. Oh, so many fun things. And two fabulous guests. We've got Wendy Chow, brother brand ambassador, Coleen Sweatman, brother educator, and myself. And I've got a class going on here that they're not quilting though. So pop in, say hi. It's so nice to see you all. I love it when I see all of your comments show up before we're even live. That makes it a lot of fun while everything's loading. So, all right, let's not make our fabulous guest wait any longer. Coleen, great to see you. Look at that shirt. It's so cute. Wendy Chow, how are you?
Hey, everyone. I wish I got the memo and I should have got my Halloween gear on too.
That's all right. I'm wearing my Valentine gear. I'm totally off on the I'm totally off on that. So, oh my gosh, it's so nice to see you both. So, all of you rolling in, we are on Brother Sew's YouTube and Facebook pages. We are live, so bring your questions and comments. We'd love that. So, Coleen, you have another Halloween shirt. If you guys watched a couple weeks ago, she had a super cute one too. I think you're going to show me up at Houston Quilt Fest.
I had a vest on last time, so this time I had to change it out.
Very, very fun. Very fun. All right. So Wendy and Coleen have some really fun things. We're going towards the quilting side this time, quilting and quilt broidery, for those of you that love embroidery. So without further ado, Wendy, why don't we let you kick it off?
Yeah, sure. So we've got quite a few things to go through today. So I'm going to show you 3 speedy ways in creating half square triangles. So if you're not familiar with half square triangles, they're a pretty, pretty popular block that consistently comes up in a lot of quilting designs, which you may see as you're scrolling along through Instagram or Pinterest. So these are half square triangles. So I've got 3 speedy ways in creating those. So let's hop on over to my desk and I'll show you how.
All right, well, we're taking her out and I'm going to bring her up to her desk here. Don't forget, you guys can ask your questions. We are live and we've got a lot of fun things for you today. So don't forget, you can also watch the replay. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. All right, Wendy, we've got you at your desk.
All right, so the 3 methods I'm going to take you through is the 2-in-1 method. And then also the second method would be the 4-in-1 half square triangle method. And then the third and final one is the 8 at a time half square triangles. And then at the very end, I'll show you how to trim it all up. So I will just push that away, but it's really cool. It's just from a simple 2 squares, and then you can generate 2 half square triangles, and then again 2 squares and 2 squares, which then make all of this. So you can imagine that'd be pretty speedy to make up these half square triangles. All right, so let's kick off with the first method, which is the 2-in-1 half square triangle method. So I've got 2 squares here. These are, I believe they measure up as 3-inch squares. If you're ever not sure, you can. There's a lot of resources online, and you could Google like 2-in-1 half square triangle method calculator or like a table, and it'll provide you with a list of different measurements as to how big should you be cutting your square and how big that half square triangle will end up being. So what I have here, like I mentioned, is 2 3-inch squares, which then equate to being 2.5-inch half square triangles, and then when you sew it all up together, end up being 2 inches. So because there's a 1/4 seam allowance. Alrighty, so let's start off with this. I've got a pen here. Hopefully you can see it. It's time to run out a little bit of ink. But I am going to draw a diagonal line from one point to the other. Right now I'm working with solids, but if you are working with printed fabric, say for example this, you want to mark that diagonal guideline on the wrong side of the fabric. So this is the wrong side, correct side. All right, so I'm going to draw the diagonal guideline. I've got my quilting ruler. When I do the drawing of the guideline, I kind of set off slightly from the actual point so that I know for sure the diagonal guideline is going to be exactly at the point. So hopefully you can kind of see that diagonal guideline. All right, so I've done that. And now imagine these are right sides together. I know it's a little bit tricky with this solid fabric, but here we go. And I've got some pins here, and I'm going to pin these two together, right sides together. And then I'm going to put this here and here. And then we are then going to sew two seams here. It'd be a 1/4 inch from that middle guideline. So I'm going to switch on over my camera so you've got a better view of the sewing machine, and we'll be on our way. Just give me a moment. So, yeah.
All right. Well, she's moving on over. She doesn't want to get you seasick, so I'm going to bring Coleen up here. Coleen, I just have to ask you. Sorry.
That's all right.
Bring this back down. I'm getting you, girls. Too many cameras. Coleen, do you do a lot of quilting? Because I have to be honest, I love doing free motion quilting, but I have a really problem with the small triangles.
My favorite
I
thing.
muted you. Go ahead. Sorry, what did you say?
I said I love quilting and it's my favorite thing.
Oh, there you go. There you go. In fact, I'll bring this up in my next break. One of the girls here sewing brought me the most beautiful quilt she made. And my husband and I were there trying to count how many little itsy bitsy boxes are in there. So I think what Wendy's going to show us now shows that it takes a lot of work. All right. She's just about ready, I think. Let me bring her back up here. All right, Wendy, I think let me bring you. Hold on 1 second here. There we go. Oh, you always have the sirens go off in New York.
I know. I live right around the corner of a fire station. Yeah, they're not after me. I swear, they're not after me. But you mentioned earlier about seeing a quilt with several squares and triangles and all these different bits cut up. The great thing about these 3 methods that I'm taking you through, it's going to make the cutting method as well as piecing it all together super quick. So it's not as bad as what you think, or a lot of work put into it. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of work into it, but you know what I mean. You're not cutting like hundreds of squares and triangles versus maybe like a few less. But anyway, all right, so I'm here at my sewing machine. I have the BQ3100, which is part of the Quilt Club series by Brother. And one of the great features on this machine is the how quick and easy it is to find the 1/4 inch seam allowance. So there is this function on the machine where you could just hit that button here and it will automatically find that 1/4 inch seam allowance from the right edge of your presser foot. All right, so as previously mentioned, we are going to be sewing 2 lines, a 1/4 inch seam allowance away from each side of that guide that we drew. So I'm going to lower this needle down and then my presser foot. I know there's a auto lifter on the foot, but sometimes I do it the old school way. Anyway, I'm going to make a little bit of noise now and I'm going to start sewing. So you want to sew a 1/4 inch away from this guide. So I've matched up the right edge of my presser foot. I know for sure that my needle is a 1/4 inch away from that guide. So I'm just going to speed through this bit. Sorry for the noise. And then I'm just going to hit this scissor button up here and that will cut my thread. And I'm going to press my presser foot up again. And then I'm just going to repeat the same side. So I'm going to lower that needle down. And then I'm going to lower that presser foot, match that right edge with that guide that I just drew. And then sew away. All right, now like this. All right, I'm just going to push this aside briefly and I'm going to bring in my cutting mat here. I'm going to remove the pins here. And now what I'm going to do is actually get my rotary cutter and the ruler and then cut on that guideline there. So you now have 2 half square triangles. So that's from just a set of 2 squares. So instead of actually cutting up 4 individual squares and then stitching it all up together, you've just done that with just 2 squares. So that's the first method. Now I'm going to show you the 4-in-1 half square triangle method. So I've got these 2 squares. Let's see, how big are these? Yes, so they're 4.5 inch each. And again, these are going to produce 2.5 inch unfinished size half square triangles. And then when you stitch them all up together, it's going to end up being 2 inch half square triangles because it factors in the 1/4 inch seam allowance on each of the 4 sides. All right, so with this one, I'm just going to do right side together. Imagine this is right sides together. I'm going to grab my pins. If you're really confident, sometimes I'm really lazy and feeling confident, I actually don't end up pinning this. Just it saves time. I want to get through the project really quickly. And it's okay if it's slightly off because in the final step of this, my part of the video, I'm going to show you how to trim the half square triangles into size. Some patterns, just keep in mind, don't actually provide you with that little bit of extra fabric for the trimming, so just keep that in mind as well. But with the measurements that I'm working with today, it gives me a little bit of overage, some space so I can trim it up, so that's more nice and accurate when you pull up your whole quilt top together. Anyway, so with this one, the 4-in-1 method, we are going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance from the edge and on all 4 sides of the square. And then we are going to do some cutting magic afterwards to then create 4 half square triangles. All right, so I'm going to move this aside, bring my sewing machine back. Hello. All right, so like I mentioned, we are going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance from each of the raw edges, the 4 raw edges. Again, I've hit that function earlier, so I know for sure my needle position is correct. All right, so let's get stitching. So I'm sorry, it's going to be a little bit noisy for a little moment, but here we go. So that's one edge. All right, and now I'm going to stitch the second side of this square. Sorry, I can't really fit it all into the screen, but you can see the second side of the square. And I'm going to lower this down and stitch away again. All right, and I'm going to repeat on the third side. And then I'm going to repeat this. So one of my favorite features on this machine is that finding that 1/4 inch seam allowance really quickly and easy without any second guessing. Because I know for sure that when I do line up that raw edge up against the right side of that press foot, I know for sure I'm going to get a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the time. So I'm just going to keep stitching this hard. Alrighty, so we're done. And then I'm going to shift my sewing machine back a little bit. All right, so I'm going to bring this back in by cutting that. And now hopefully you have a good view of everything. I'm going to bring in my longer ruler here and my handy dandy fabric pen. And what I'm going to do is draw a 2 diagonal lines going across from each other. So from one corner to the other corner, and I'll flip it the other way. And do the same thing. So you can kind of see, hopefully you can see with my fabric pen that's dying. I know I need to add that on my shopping list next time, but you can see there's a cross there. If you're feeling confident, you can skip this step and just go straight to the cutting, but for the purpose of this demonstration, I am showing you where exactly I'm cutting. So I've got my rotary cutter, my quilting ruler, then I'm just going to cut on that guide. And then one of the great things about this rotating mat is that my pieces don't go out of place. Anyway, I am going to cut this up on the side. then, ta-da, you've got 4 half square triangles. And then you get your iron, you can press to one side, or you can press it open. So you can open up your seams like this. I'm just finger pressing purpose of getting through this as quick as I can for the fun part of embroidery on the second half. So here you go, there are 4 half square triangles here. So this is your second method. And now I'm going to take you through the third and final method, and that is the 8-in-1 method. So here I have printed fabrics this time around. So again, right sides together. Actually, before I pin this in place, we're going to be marking quilting guidelines, sewing guidelines again. So I've got this purple one. I'm going to use some white chalk this time around because we're using a dark fabric. And I'm going to draw a cross. So 2 diagonal guidelines going from one corner to the other. So here we go. And again, like I said, I kind of like to offset the ruler just slightly. So I know for sure that I'm going to get a straight, I'm going to hit the corners of the diagonal. So oh yeah, this is coming out beautifully. All right. And then I'm going to do it on the other side as well. So I guess with the 8-in-1 method, it's kind of combining the 2 methods that I just showed you, where you are, drawing 2 diagonal guidelines, but then also you're pinning it together, right sides together. Let me get my pins out. I'm just going to pin it this way. This should be just one more, and this should be enough to enforce the 2 together. Right, so here we go. And then how it's like similar to the very first method I showed you, the 2-in-1 method, is you're going to be sewing a total of 4 seams. So 1 seam on each side of that diagonal guideline. So therefore you're going to be sewing a total of 4 seams. And again, it's a 1/4 inch seam allowance from the guideline. So I'm going to grab my sewing machine, and we'll go for a little sewing machine ride. All right, so again, I'm going to match the right side of that press support with the guide here. I'm going to lift the needle and start sewing. I'm just going to show you how it looks like. So you can see I have done, here's a little close up. See, I've done like a seam, 1/4 inch seam allowance away from that guide. And I'm going to repeat that on the other side as well. Magic is almost about to happen, so I've just did that, and I'm going to flip it over this side, and I'm going to repeat again 1/4 inch seam allowance of seam from that central guide that I just drew. So here. And a great thing you could do with practicing these different methods is with scraps. And then if you make enough of these, you could then make a whole quilt out of it as well. So it's a great use of scraps to practice how to make these half square triangles. All right, go. Just push this aside. So I've done my sewing. I love how this white thread pops out from this purple. So you can see we've done 4 seams here. I'm going to remove the pins here, and we are going to do some cutting. And I forgot to mention, so the size of this square is I think 6 inches. So 2 6-inch squares, and again, that's going to produce 2.5 inch square unfinished size, 2-inch finished size square, half square triangle on it. Alrighty, so I'm going to grab my rule. Here you got a better view of it. So we know that this square that I've cut here, it's a 6-inch square. So we want to cut in the middle down here and horizontally. So a good way to kind of know that it's the center, you can always use the seams where they intersect here as an indicator, but also you could use the measurement of the square as well. So I know that it's a 6-inch square, so I'm going to measure 3 inches from the side here, and then also make sure that the ruler matches up with those seams where they intersect. And I'm going to cut. I'm going to rotate this. If you don't have a rotating cutting mat, you can just simply, I'm going to pretend this is not a rotating cutting mat, but you can simply get like a smaller cutting mat, or maybe move your body and just rotate the cutting mat and then do the same thing. So you don't
Wendy, I love that you're having a pretend rotary cutting mat.
Yeah, rotate, yeah. There you go.
Manual labor.
There you go. I mean, I still got to turn it, so yeah. You can get creative. I'm going to turn it this way, and now we are going to cut on the that right there, and then the size of this square that I cut out, that's 6 inches. So I did 2 6-inch squares. All right, get ready for the magic. So I'm cutting on the guideline. I'm kind of using the seam here, so that we did. So I'm going to measure like a 1/4 inch away from that seam as well. Just kind of indicator, and then I'm just going to cut on this. So like I mentioned, if you're joining in late now, you can, there's a lot of resources online where you can simply Google like a 4-in-1 method or a 2-in-1 method, and just type in like 2-in-1 method, half square triangle calculator, and it'll tell you the measurements that you need to cut in order to make whatever size half square triangle that you want to create. So I've opened these up. Actually, just realized I did not turn on my iron. But anyway, so I have made 8 half square triangles. I'm just finger pressing these for now, and then I'll quickly show you how to make how to trim these, because I've gave myself a little bit of room so I can trim it to the size that I would like. So again, like I mentioned, it is worthwhile just sort of like testing out, making sure that what, you know, if you're going online and Googling what size square do I need to cut, make sure that, you know, there is, if you wanted to like have, you know, room to trim up your squares. So here you go. There are 8. 1, 2. I'm sure you kind of counted it along while I was unfolding these. But let me quickly show you how to trim these up, and then I'll pass it on to Coleen. There we go. I think my iron is heated up. All right. Let me get my pressing that. Hello. All right, let me see this. I always test it out if my iron is hot. Obviously, you don't touch it with your hands, so I'll always do this to make sure it's okay. All right, it's nice and hot. I'm going to press this to one side. So there is always the topic of pressing to the one side or not. I also like to press on the seams here just to kind of nest the seams first, so then the seams set in really nicely, and then that way it kind of reduces that seam bulk. So I'm going to open this, press this to one side. There's no wrong or right way. You can press it to the one side, or the you can open up. I'll quickly show you how it looks like open up. So the seam here, I'll flip it this way, get a better view of it. And there we go. Oh, it's pretty fiddly. So yeah, there are pros and cons about either way. I mean, I used to open the seams, and now more to the dark side. I also do a lot of FPP, which is foundation paper piecing as well, and that requires pressing to one side. But yeah, this is how it looks like when you press open. And you can see there are some like dog ears on here, but don't worry, we are going to trim that up right now. So I'm going to grab my cutting mat again. Where did it go? Alrighty, here we are. Okay. Hello, cutting mat. All right, so I've got this. So we got those dog ears. We are trimming those up while we are trimming these into size. So like I mentioned earlier, I want these to be 2.5-inch half square triangles. That's the unfinished size. So I've got my quilting ruler. You can see this diagonal guideline that's going across. You match that guide with the seam here. So I'm going to match that up here. Make sure that the square itself fits within that 2.5 inches. So remember, measure twice, cut once. So I'm going to do this, cut the right edge and then the top edge. And I'm going to rotate this, or if you want to, you can manually rotate it yourself, whichever works for you. And then I'm going to measure 2.5 inches from the bottom and the left edge, and then repeat the same by removing the right and the top edge of the half square triangle. And there you go. So this is your half square triangle, and then you just repeat whatever number of times of the half square triangles that you created. So these are my 3 speed methods in making half square triangles.
That is super, super cute, Wendy. So we have a question for you.
Yeah.
And I'll just bring all of us up here so we can. That was a really fun technique. I got Coleen up here as well. I hear one little echo. I don't know where it's coming from, so I'll be careful of that.
It could be my camera, so I'm going to just shift it a little bit this way. Is that better?
All right. Nope, I think it's. I'm going to mute Coleen for a second. All right. There was one quick question on here. I don't think it was you, Wendy.
Okay.
Because that one's muted. So someone asked, I think it was Lois that asked, when you were sewing that, was it just a scant 1/4 inch, or was it I don't know what the difference between that and 1/4 inch is, but it might be a quilting term.
Yeah, it is a quilting term. For people that don't know what a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance, so a scant quarter seam allowance is a seam allowance that's slightly smaller than a 1/4 inch. So maybe it's like a slither, like as thin as like a piece of thread. And basically that kind of, when you press to one side or you press open, mostly it's to one side. You don't have you don't lose some of that seam or from the seam bulk. You don't lose, it doesn't become smaller from the seam bulk. I guess that's the best way to kind of explain it. But what I did there is just 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I didn't scant there. Yeah, and
nice.
The reason why I didn't scant as well, because you're going to end up trimming these to size. So you don't need to worry about scanting.
Okay, that's perfect. So Lois, hopefully that answers your question. And Bev, it was a 6x6 that she was using last. So before we move on to Coleen, I got to share this. I just received this from a gift, but look, it's perfect. Isn't it beautiful?
Oh, that's pretty.
I know that's a lot of itsy bitsy squares. So
oh my goodness.
I have my new quilt for the boat. I know.
It's so nice. I thought that was applique on.
Oh yeah, no, it's a quilt. It's quilt.
Oh wow. That's beautiful. Yeah.
It's a big old anchor.
I love it.
Just because I love fishing. All right, so that was super fun. So Coleen, you've got more to share as well.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can. You sound great.
Okay, good. I didn't want to start before you could hear me. So what we're going to do today, she got you started with all the pieces and the bits, and I'm going to show you how to finish. So what we're going to do is I can do a little quilting, and then we're going to do some binding. So I want to show you some different things before I go to the machine, because quilting is my love, and I quilt everything. So this one is really, really old, so please be kind, because it was one of the first ones that I did. And I know how old it is because I made it for my first grandchild, and he's 25 now. And I did it before he was born, so it's had a lot of use. But back in those days, I didn't know about quilting and all the fun stuff. I had a straight stitch machine, so these are all just straight lines. And you just kind of plan a straight line. I've learned now that it probably would have been better if I had done something in the plain areas, but I didn't, and it's worn Trust me, it's been used a lot. So, oh, my husband's saying lay it down so I don't have to hold it up. But that's a lot easier, isn't it? So this is just one of the fun things, and this is literally completely quilted with the straight stitching. Typically, you don't want to go more than 4 to 4 inches apart. Mine is further than that, but it's done really, really well. This one was done with traditional binding because that's what I knew then. And you stitch it on the back. You stitch it on the back, flip it over, and then hand stitch it on the front. And that was how we did all that 25 years ago. And now I have a different way that I do it. So I'm going to show you my cheater, easier, faster way to do that. So let's get this guy out of the way. This one, let's see if you can see that. See the little quilting lines here? He's trying to get me to motion. There we go. See the little quilting lines? They're about 1/4 of an inch apart. And so, oh, there we go. What I did was I used 2 pencils in, you know, those little things that hold 2 pencils together, and you can do it with chalk. And I just made an outline around in a bigger and a bigger and a bigger outline. But the reason that I did that is they wanted me to show how to do stitching on just a normal machine, not using the cheater ways that we have on the newer embroidery machines. And so what I did, this is a triple stitch. It's 2 forward and 1 back. And that gives it a lot more power. You can see how much darker the quilt lines are, so they're really accentuated. Isn't that fun? I did both sides. This one's probably actually easier to see because there's not as much going on. But this is very, very easy to do. You know, you just choose your shape, stitch down your shape, and then just follow it around with a pencil line. So that was one easy peasy way. Then I learned the actually proper way to do binding, which is to stitch it to the front, fold it to the back, and then hand stitch it back there. So that's what I did with that one. Then moving along, let's see, where do I want to go next? Then moving along, this fella shows something that we have on some of the machines, and it is this sashing, the beautiful quilted sashing. And there's a bunch of these patterns on several of the top-end machines. I know the Luminaire has it. I know the PR has it. I think the Stellaire has it. So you have these nice I'm not positive about that, but you have these beautiful, beautiful outlines. And then this time, this is just a quick throwdown piece, and I decided, why don't I just try, let me find good, because this was my first try at this. Here we go. This doesn't look too bad. You stitch it on the back and flip it to the front and stitch it with a teeny tiny little blanket stitch. So we have on our machines, and I think it's on just about every sewing machine we have except the straight stitch only. It's a stitch it takes a little bite over, and then it takes 2 or 3 little teeny tiny straight stitches and then a little bite over. I use that all the time. It is just absolutely indestructible for hemming children's clothes or for hemming things or fixing things. And I started using that, and it's like, oh my gosh, it lasts so long. It's so easy to do. And here I went a little bit off base, so you can see what happens if you do. I've got a little bit of a line there, so I probably should have used a dark bobbin thread, and then I wouldn't have had that issue. But we learn as we go, and that's the fun of these little pieces. It is just a throw piece to throw down for people to touch. Now this next guy, there we go. He's a table topper. You know, the kind you throw in the middle of the table at Thanksgiving time. And so I thought, well, I'm too lazy to bind the whole thing. So what am I going to do? And it's not as big as I wanted. I really wanted it to be this big. And those designs aren't that big. So I said, well, I'll just put a frame around it. So I made them, I just made the back a whole lot bigger, and then did the same thing I did on that other one. I just wrapped it to the front, tucked it under, and it's just that little tiny itty bitty blanket stitch again, and that shows on the top, but on the back side, all you see is what it looks like, just a straight stitching line. If I hold that up really, really closely to the camera, whoops, wrong camera, I can't get too close to it. It's tiny, tiny, tiny. I'll show you when I go to the machine, the stitch that I use, and you'll understand then. It just vanishes right into anything. And it's really literally, I think, on machine Brother makes. This was just a fun one that I did because I wanted to show, first of all, we've moved a lot. My husband was in the military, so home is home. But this again was one that was bound from the back and then just top stitched along the front. And you really can't tell that unless you stand here and pick at it, which is why I love this method. And the Luminaire and the PR and some of the other machines have these borders or sashing pieces, which I just love because they line up so pretty. Now this guy is right off the Luminaire, and it is a quilt fill. So they've gone from, you know, they did the borders first, and we went, oh yeah, we want that. Now we want fills. Now we want fills. And so they did it, and the fills are amazing. Now they're limited in size. They'll only go from about an 8 by 8 inch to 118 inches by 118 inches. I wish I could hear you going, wow. The 118 inches is a super king. So that is a gigantic fill. And the way that they've done it, and I'll try to walk you through it on screen, is the way that they've done it is they do them in panels, and the panels have match points. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, I don't care about that because my machine doesn't have it. Well, what I figured out is there isn't any reason that you couldn't do your own. You can draw your own pattern, and as long as it has match points, it'll line up and keep going. So what do I mean by that? Well, this guy's match point is right here, and I can't even see where the other one is, so that's okay. But what it'll do is it'll stitch a design, and it'll leave a little point. And if you start your next design, like if I draw one and I start my next design, what I did when I drew some is I fold the paper into quarters, and I put a line on the top, the two sides and the two middles, and then I make my design have a little tab so that I can see exactly where the next one's going to start. And you can just keep repeating a design over and over and over. So that's a way that you could make your own, and it's not hard. And if I need to go into more detail, I will for sure. It's one of my favorite things to do. And again, this size, this particular one goes up to 118 inches by 118 inches. But that's to carry around. You would really, really have to examine it closely to try to see. I have a thread tail so I can see where one matches, but you would really, really have to look at it closely because it does match so well. So I was so impressed with when Brother brought these out, but there isn't any reason that you couldn't do this yourself. You would just have to take a little more practice to get to it. And then the last thing I'm going to show you here, boy, I talk fast, don't I? The last thing I'm going to show you here is binding, and then I'm going to go to the machine. But the binding, and I did this in a, let's see, I'm going to put it over here and hope that you can see it. So if I flip it over, can you see it?
Yeah, we can see that great, Coleen.
Okay, good. I put it in contrasting color because I wanted you to be able to see it. So on the top side, what you have is a little teeny tiny baby stitch. That's the one I was talking about. It takes 2 or 3 stitches and then does a little bite. And I did it in a really high contrast. I did the red, which you would always do it in the right color, but I wanted you to be able to see it. So that's why it's this way. And then that's what the front looks like, and that's what the back looks like. So it's so tiny on the back that you don't, if it's in the same color, you would never see it. Isn't that fun? My lazy man way to do this. But I love the way that it looks. So, what do you think?
I like it a lot. Wendy, what do you think?
It looks great. I must say I haven't tried that way in binding, so I'm gonna try that out on my machine.
I know. I like that. Super easy too. Both of you have had such a great tutorial, but a lot of people, Coleen, are loving your samples. Coleen said she loves the border quilting.
I do love the border quilting. I think it just enhances a quilt something crazy. I'm going to come over to the machine, and I realize now that I wasn't very smart because I got it set up to embroider because I was going to embroider a design, but I didn't set up to show you that stitch. Do you want me to pull up that stitch?
We can do that when you're finished if you want, because if you already have it ready for this, you can just keep rolling and then maybe at the end bring up that stitch.
So what I did here, and I'm just going to go back so you can see me coming into it here. In fact, I'll go all the way back. I'll just go home. How's that? In the My Design Center program, there are all kinds of fills. And so the top line here is going to show you the outline, and you have all kinds of different outlines. I'm not going to stitch it, so it doesn't make any difference to me what that is. And then down here, you have a bucket or a paintbrush. The paintbrush leaves you a dot. The bucket fills the area that you give it to fill. And the eyedropper is little bitty pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here, and this is fill. This one is stippling, and this is the home run key right here. Because when you touch that and you touch select, you get all of these amazing, and I know I'm going through them way too fast for you to see any of them, but that's okay. You just need to get to where you can see there's 48 fills. So 48 fills that you can quilt a quilt up to 118 inches square by. I found that very impressive. Now there are other machines. Go ahead.
Coleen. That's definitely my kind of quilting.
Yeah. Well, see, and it's perfect. Every time. So, and you can do it at home. So the cool part is the PR has those borders, which is fun. And the fills are also on the PR. If you look in the My Design Center piece, they're there. And a lot of times people think the My Design Center is just for backgrounds, but no, you could just fill the entire block and have a quilt block out of it. Stellar has the same thing. So kind of nice to have that variety. I'm not sure what other machines have them. Then over here, these are the built-ins, and I went down to number 48. But do you see that I have a tab that says custom? How about that? Well, if I go to custom, I can create something. I created these in our PE design program, but you can draw and have anything that you want and make it as a custom pattern and bring it in here. Now, some of these I duplicated so the whole screen would be filled because you can have up to 12 custom patterns. Isn't that fun? You can just make your own whatever you want.
That's very cool, Coleen.
I found it really, really exciting, but that's me. So I'm going to go through here and I'm going to choose, the leaves are actually one of my favorites of the millions that are on here. So I'm going to choose them and I'm going to touch OK. And then I'm going to, you can see again the fill, the stippling in this, and I'm going to go select. I've already done that. Okay. And I'm going to choose a color. I'm going to choose well, it looks like I have blue thread on, so I'm going to choose blue. And I'm going to touch OK. And I'm going to, and I want to show you this mistake first so you'll know what happens when you do it. I touched and I got just a little teeny tiny speck there. Well, that's because I touched when the paintbrush was selected. And I make that mistake a lot. So if you touch the bucket and then touch the screen, it will fill the screen. Now, if you don't want an entire hoop full and you just want a little, like a 4x4 or some, much smaller area, then you just establish a square first. I'll go back and do that. So I'll just choose a square and I'll make it the size I want it to be. I'd like it to be, well, that one's 6. I'll make it just a hair bigger because I can, and I'm going to tell it, okay. And then when I go to fill, it'll only fill that area instead of the entire thing. So a lot of times I may not want a giant area. A lot of times I personally do want a giant area, but at least I don't. Now, what I love, love, love about this is that's an okay size for what I'm doing. But when I had the great big hoop, that's kind of tight quilting. So what I can do is I can go to next. And here I have all kinds of wonderful commands. So I can toggle through to get to different ones, but I can say, gosh, that's just too big for my quilt. It's going to overwhelm it. Let me take it down to a smaller size. And it's going to make it smaller. And opposite, if I have a great big quilt, I'm going to go up, and I can go up to 200%. Now that's going to overwhelm this little quilt, but I want you to see what a gigantic difference it is, and it keeps its ratio. Now I just realized something, and what I need to do is I need to go back and I need to choose a different pattern, because what I'm going to show you won't show up very well in this pattern, but that's okay. I'm just going to get rid of these guys, and I'm going to pull up. There we go. I'm going to go back to my design center. I'm going to grab a shape. Let's pull a shape in. Let's pull that guy in. There we go. And let's grab this guy. I wanted to pull in this guy because he's very, very symmetrical. He's a very obvious pattern. He's very, very, very symmetrical. So I've done this on a quilt and I liked it, but the quilt was about fish. And I thought that was kind of boring because fish are not that boring. So when you go to next, you get some choices. Now the bubbles are fine the size they are, but wouldn't it be fun if I could change the direction? So I'm going to change the direction ever so slightly. Oh, doesn't that look more like bubbles? Because they're not all in a perfect alignment. They're kind of wandering around. I like that better. To me, I like it to look a little bit like I screwed up. No. Then the next one is I can change where the center is. Now in this one, it doesn't really matter so much. The next one looks like little wonky circles, and that's what they are. They're wonky circles. So how much do I want to random shift? How wonky do I want these to be? And I have different levels of wonkiness, but I really like this. See, now those aren't perfect anymore. Those look like more like rocks at the bottom of the pond, or so I like that I can change that. This one will move the center, so I could have the center be here. I could have the center be here. I could have the center be here. And what that does is it makes the eye follow the progression of where the center is. Now, this doesn't have a true center, but it does really well on those blocks that have a center. And then the last thing I want to show you on here, I want to see, oh good, I'm not too bad on time. This guy is very, very dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch it, and I have choices. I can have it stitched that 3 times around, and it'll be perfect and wonderful, but it's very, very bold. And sometimes I don't want my quilting to be quite that bold. So I'm going to touch the one time around. And it's going to look the same to the human eye, but well, you can tell that it's lighter. You can also tell from the visual here that it's lighter. So what I love about that is that it's lighter. So it then acts as the background. It's much easier to focus on the background if it's not so overwhelming. So if I wanted it to be the star of the show, I would leave it at 3. And if I want it to be the quilting around a shape, then I want it to be at 1. And then I can press set and it's ready to go. Now, all of the machines that we talked about also have the ability to, you've already got a design and you want to go in and quilt it. You can protect the design by putting in a little border around it. So let me just show you how to do that. I've got a design up here. I'm going to just choose a nice big letter. I'm going to put in a B for brother, and I'm going to set it. And I'm going to add from my design center. Oops, I didn't make it. There we go. Now I touched something, and what that did is it made it into an outline. Okay, let's go back. I'm sorry, I'm going too fast for myself even. But what you can do is you can block it so the quilting will quilt just around your shape and not over it. So that's where I was headed with this. But there's my B. I didn't lose him at all. Let's go to my design center. It should be right here. We go. That made when you choose the flower, it's going to make an outline around him. I'm going to choose that one because he's already there. Okay, I'm just going to pull one up from my design center because that's quicker. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? Oh, there we go. There we go. Should be in here. Ooh, there's all kinds of fun things on here, huh? Okay. There. Take an outline around him. See how it's made a dark outline around him? And I'm going to put that into memory. And it answered me and it says, do you want to recall it? Yes, I do. So I'm going to go to the My Design Center, add from My Design Center, and I'll bring it up. And there it is. And then I'll just quilt around it. So when I go to quilt, it leaves my design untouched. And I love this feature. I use it a zillion, million, trillion times a day. So and it's just showing this as a solid right now, but it does actually quilt it in whatever, because I had a solid in there, but I can put in any of these quilting designs. Again, it's the whole lot of them that have, and you can change the direction. You can do anything. Oh, that would be fun with it. And there you go. But that's fun. I didn't even stitch anything yet. Do you want me to go back? Or are we nearly out of time? How are we on this?
That's really cute, by the way. You got about 5-6 minutes.
Okay. So then, where did I put that? Did I put that in my memory pocket? Like a good girl? I did. Good job. So there, and I'm just going to take it right up here. And I'm going to touch embroidery. Oh, I put it in too big of a frame. Let's move it back down. Okay. See how it takes care of me? It didn't even say you dummy. It just said you put it in too big of a frame. And I have the 10 by 10 on because the magnetic frame is super, super awesome for when you're moving a quilt like this. It just makes it so, so, so simple. So I'm going to, I still didn't move it down far enough. I'll just go to the center and then should be fine. There we go. And we're just going to go ahead and touch. And there she goes. And she's going to stitch and she's going to fill that area. And I have her on slow.
So did you lower the speed on that? Is that what you said, Coleen?
I did. I lowered the speed. I can tell by what she's... See, I have her here at 400 stitches per minute because I was doing something very, very detailed. But I'm going to take her up to 8. I'll go to 700. No, I won't. 600 for these, she says. So 600 it is. That's interesting. I didn't know that. But you can hear her zooming along.
That's so cool. So essentially, you're
Are there any questions for me?
I was going to say that's so cool. It's essentially like having a long arm quilting machine.
Okay, I can't hear you over the machine. My microphone is too close to the machine, so I'm going to...
What I was saying is essentially you have like a long arm quilting machine, but on your domestic sewing machine at home.
That's exactly right. That's exactly the whole purpose of this. That's why we have it, and that's why it makes it. That's where I am. Okay, that's why we have it this way. It's because you can take. It is like having a long arm quilting machine, but a lot of people don't have the space for a long arm quilting machine, and they all have the space for one of these guys. Everybody can find space for an embroidery machine. At least I could. If it had to be on the end of my bed, I'd find space for it.
For sure. Michelle wants to know, you can't go over 600 with that magnetic hoop. No, I don't think that's what you were saying.
It may be because of the magnetic hoop that it's not letting it go over 600, yes.
Okay.
Because I haven't used that hoop yet for this purpose. And it seemed to not want me to go above that. Now, if I was doing it in my regular hoop, it would do 1,000 stitches per minute.
Okay.
I do that all the time because I'm always hurrying to get it done.
Great question.
Before the next trip.
Any other questions? This has been such a great show. So informational as far as Wendy, you did that one other time, very similar when you were doing your quilt along last year. And I was just so mesmerized watching those little triangles.
I know.
They're hard to sew if you were just to sew them because they're on the bias. They get all wonky and you just sew it like nothing. And also you must have the sharpest rotary blade ever because it's just a quick.
Well, I just changed it this morning. That's why. Because I knew I was going to come on the show. And I was like, I need to switch it. Otherwise, people are going to say, you should change your rotary cutter blade. And I should.
It would only be during a live show that we would notice that.
Yeah.
Before, Wendy. So that was really cool.
Yeah, it does more. Any last minute questions? This has been such a great show. Someone asked about, yes, this is the anchor. I did not make it. It was a gift from somebody here in my class. As you all know, I love boats, but that's a beautiful quilt. So, yes, I can't take credit because I didn't do it. But after watching you two, I could. I love that quilt broidery, though. When Brother added that, how many fills, Coleen, did you say was in that? You're on the Luminaire?
I think it's 40.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's
Bill just told me 48. My memory's old. 48.
48?
That's a lot.
I think people in my studio are saying the same thing. Everybody's been watching you. They're mesmerized by both of you. All right.
It's an amazing way.
Go ahead, Coleen. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's an amazing, amazing way to quilt because you're always perfect.
Yeah, I like that. All right. Well, thank you both for being on here. This has been such a great show. Again, if you're watching the replay, you can pop in and ask questions because Brother's social team will answer those for you. And just as a reminder, go to brothersews.com, and that's where you'll find, a lot of things, 2 blogs, sewing blog and a crafting blog. And you can go back and watch all of these replays. So I love your shirt. I love your shirt, Coleen. And I'm with you, Wendy. I didn't get the memo. I'm wearing Valentine's, so I got to work on it. Your quilt has a very fall look to it.
Yeah, it kind of does. This is actually my son's baby quilt, so we've got a lot of washes with that. So yeah.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, we loved watching the photos of your little one on Instagram. So everyone out there, great to see you. If you have any questions, just drop them below. We'll try to get to those. And in the meantime, see you next week. Happy sewing, everyone.
See you, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.